Hello everyone, today I'm going to talk about how to world build a story in a way that's believable, makes sense, and feels like it has history. Oh, and if the light changes, I recorded this video during 2 different times of day. Now, a lot of things go into making a good story, such as themes, character development, and writing craft. But today we're going to talk about world building. When designing a world, a lot of writers and creators go to the rule of cool. That is, they put whatever they can think of into their story to make it exciting, interesting, beautiful, and that's great. We want our stories to be exciting, interesting, beautiful, but when it ends there, the story ends up being shallow. Think Star Wars after Disney, or any Marvel movie. As a sci-fi writer who has many planets and societies in my stories, giving my stories believable world building is something that is very important and enjoyable to me. So today I'm going to talk about my method, the 3 E's of storytelling. The 3 E's are environment, economics, and evolution. The environment is the landscape in which your story takes place. The geography, the biology, the locations of resources. The economics is what the people do in order to provide for themselves. It's how they get their resources and manufacture things and conduct trade and set up their societies. Environment and economics are somewhat separate. Evolution is how things change over time, and so it's more integrated with the other two. So, step 1, how to develop an environment. The first thing you want to do is write down a mathematical equation that generates a universe from nothingness. Okay, maybe that's a little too deep for most of us. So the first thing you want to do is pay attention to what is important about your story. What are the characters going through? What are the themes you're exploring? Whatever that seed is that makes your story important, that's where you start. That's where you always start. Then the next question is, what environment does this take place in? What landscape, with what resources and what life forms would make sense for this story, this important thing, to take place in. So then you start thinking, if you want large rocks, then you can look at the geography for places where there are a lot of large rocks on Earth. How did those rocks get there? Were they brought by rivers? Were they laid down by deposits of the primordial ocean? Were they left when a meteor strike hit the ground? Were they blasted out of the mantle by a volcano? Is there a lot of life around, or is it desert? Where does the water come from? Are there a lot of storms? Are there a lot of rivers? Is it near an ocean? Is it in the mountains? What are the weather patterns like? And once you've answered those questions, you can ask, what kind of life is going to take advantage of these conditions? What kind of creatures and plants are going to evolve here? If it's in a desert, then you're going to have a lot of plants and animals that can store a lot of water for long amounts of time. And then you're going to have animals that can eat those plants and eat those other animals. If it's in the mountains, you're going to have a lot of creatures with a lot of dexterity or who can jump really well. If there are fast-flowing rivers, you might have fish like salmon, which migrate up and down river between seasons. And then you'll have predators on the banks or maybe birds who take advantage of the migrations to get a little extra food. If it's an alien world, then maybe there's no moon, or maybe there are 2 moons and the tides are different. Or maybe it's a different kind of sun and the plants need to change in order for photosynthesis to work properly. Or maybe your story's way out there and you have a space habitat, like an O'Neill cylinder. The geography in these places are designed by intelligent life, but it has to follow the same principles in order to work. You've got ecosystems, you've got geography, and you have a balance of where the material flows. Like if you have a river, it has to get pumped back to the top. Animals need their population controlled by predators. Carcasses need to be broken down by decomposers. And it can get very, very interesting as long as it all works together to form a cohesive whole. This can also lead to interesting plots where something goes wrong with the ecosphere and the characters need to find a way to balance it again. So that's environment. It's about the layout of the landscape and the life that thrives there. Next, let's look at economics. When people live in a place, they tend to use resources to enrich themselves, or to trade, or to create power structures and oppress people underneath them to enrich themselves. A lot of very interesting stories and conflict can come from the economy of a place in addition to its environment. So the first thing to realize about an economy is that everything that exists comes from somewhere. Every tool, every device, every synthetic material is made and put to use and shaped and formed by human ingenuity, or by artificial intelligence and automated processes if you want to go that route. But the thing to realize, and for me, this is something that occasionally just hits me and I'm blown away completely, is that we are surrounded all the time by things that are not natural, but that we created, humans created. The clothes on our bodies are made of plant fiber or animal fur that were twined into strings and woven together into fabrics and then sewn together into clothing. That's mind-blowing. The electronic device that you're watching this on is made of plastic and metal, things that came from the ground or were made in factories and originally laboratories. The room around you, if you're inside, is made out of materials that have been processed by people and human processes. And all these materials originally came from the natural world around us. So one process of an economy is the supply chains. That is how we get from a raw material mined or taken or extracted from nature, from forests, from mines, from deposits, from animals, how that gets processed, how it gets turned into other materials, how it gets put together into technology and into items and devices and things that the people of your world use in their lives. This can be fun when developing a fantasy story because oftentimes the people in fantasy live in low technology societies, and so you can really go all out in your supply chain development. Like, they grow cotton in this place and it is shipped to this town where it is spun and woven into cloth, which is shipped to this other town where it is made into clothing, or it could all happen at once in a single place. Where does food come from? Is it grown by local farmers? Is it imported from exotic places around the world? Is it grown in laboratories? Is it grown by automated machinery? And how is it shipped? Energy is another big one. How do the people get their energy? Have they discovered electricity yet? Have they discovered nuclear power yet? Nuclear fusion? Or have they done something very futuristic and have antimatter reactors or black hole reactors? Do they have computers yet? Or do they do calculations on abacuses? Most of the time, people will find ways to use things in their environment as resources. If you invent a new animal, then your people will find something to do with that animal, whether it's use them as a pet, whether it's put them in a zoo, whether it's hunt them and use their parts for clothing and food, or whether it's protect them as an endangered species, create a park for them, domesticate them and use them as livestock or beasts of burden. What materials lie in the ground? Is there coal? Is there marble? Is there iron, gold, rare earth metals? What about the plants? We make so much from wood that just grows all around us. We also use plant fibers for clothing. We use plants for food. Where does the water come from? How are things transported from place to place, from city to city, from village to village, from space settlement to space settlement? And what institutions and organizations participate and facilitate all this activity? Is it individuals performing trades and trading amongst each other? Is it corporations who hire armies of laborers in order to produce things en masse? Is it all directed by a government who uses extreme amounts of data in order to figure out where things need to go? Are there efficient ways of allocating the goods and resources, or do they just pile up in the hands of the people who own the means to produce and distribute them? I've totally lost my train of thought. I forgot where I am. I need to watch this video. And the last E to talk about is evolution. Evolution is how things change over time. We all know about evolution from biology, which is species that mutate and over millions of years change their traits and find new niches, and even over long enough periods of time change the form of their bodies. If we think of the idea of evolution in general, not just applied to biology, it's the idea that things change and the effects of what happens propagate into the future. That there isn't any normal or natural state of the world, but the very state of everything can change over time. For instance, if you have a plain and a stream starts to flow through, and that stream turns into a river, then over a very long period of time, that plain can develop a canyon. If an animal finds a new niche and the population explodes, then that changes the entire environment to something new. If an apex predator dies out, then their prey is going to multiply and have a population explosion until the land cannot sustain them. Maybe if a grazing animal's population explodes, then they eat up all the grass and an area turns into a desert. Or if a society develops technology and expands very rapidly, they could pollute the environment and cause fish to die off, or cause greenhouse gases to pile up and trigger global warming, or chop down all the trees of a forest and disrupt the natural habitat there, and then the weather patterns and migration patterns associated with that forest. And it can also go the other way, of course. For instance, the people of your story might put practices in place to restore their environments, or to terraform environments on a new planet. Economies can evolve quickly, like we're seeing in our present-day society, or slowly, as many pre-modern societies did. Methods of work change as new machines are invented. Trade routes change based on political conditions or natural disasters or competition or any number of factors. The economic environment is always changing depending on which businesses and organizations are succeeding and growing or failing. But that gets into a whole can of worms that we don't have time for today. So in summary, my method of world building involves the 3 E's: environment, which is the state of the natural world; economics, which is how resources are extracted and made into goods and traded; and evolution, which is how everything changes over time. So I know I've been rambling this video, and I hope that you have found something useful somewhere in here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.